Hello there, this is the voice of Stewart Pearce, and welcome to Deep Dialogues, a series of 12 remarkable conversations that I'm having with male soul stewards from all over the world, these extraordinary men who are transmitting unconditional love, empathy, and vast waves of spiritual intelligence, encouraging us, inspiring us, enthusing us into living a new level of living, and thereby creating a brave new world. Oh, we're live. We're live. Okay. So we're live, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. 2032 here, but 12:32 with Emmanuel on the Pacific coastline. So that means it's 3:32 on the Eastern Seaboard. So while my wonderful tech manager is just sorting out screens, not that you can see this, but we can, I'm going to introduce the wonderful Emmanuel Dagher to everybody, which you probably already know of him. I'm sure you've checked him out. But I have a wonderful bio here that I'm going to quickly share with you. So Emmanuel is widely recognized as a leading voice in the mind-body-spirit communion, particularly in the United States, but spreading, of course, globally as a best-selling author, spirit teacher, founder of the healing technology, the Core Work Method, and as well as being an absolutely amazing person, a human angel, I would suggest. So Emmanuel gained recognition for his unique healing gifts, spiritual wisdom, and humanitarian efforts on behalf of refugee women and children. And he has inspired tens of thousands of people around the world to create lives of joy, freedom, fulfillment, and well-being. In other words, prospering through divine intent. Emmanuel's soul-based desire to elevate the consciousness of the planet began early in life, having experienced the gross challenges of growing up in war-torn Lebanon during the country's civil war. And Emmanuel experienced horrors that no other human being should ever have to experience, having moved through this unfathomable loss and challenge in his early years. He then discovered this unique body of work, which has become underscored by a deep sense of heartfelt love and unity consciousness, aligned as, of course, co-creating with the divine. And I'll be sharing his website with you later and all the points of connection. So, Emmanuel.
I love your energy, brother. Thank you so much for that. I just really appreciate you. Thank you.
Oh, bless you, bless you, bless you. And for those of you who've been tuning in, I hope you don't mind being slightly personal, Emmanuel.
Emmanuel!
We've just discovered that we're both Taurians.
Thank you so much for that.
Oops. What's going on here? We had an overlay. And already, Emmanuel, there are wonderful people tuning in. There is Dirish and Claire and Patty and Lennis. Oh, I mean, there's so many beautiful people tuning in. And anyway, wonderful people, welcome. And we're here to enthrall you and enthuse you and inspire you. And I'm really happy. I've been dreaming this into creation, and Emmanuel, who is so busy, agreed to be with me. And I suppose on a gross level, I'm like a pig in shit. I just love, you know how pigs love shit. I just love being here with you. On a higher level, I think it's wonderful that we have this time to commune.
Yes, and I'm so honored to be here, and I'm so grateful for everyone who's tuning in. It really takes a special kind of person to be into this kind of dialogue. So I just want to thank everyone watching as well.
Well, I think we probably have a lot of people. So special people tuning into special dialogue. And I mean, I know you and I have already shared, but the whole premise of this deep dialogue concept really began at the beginning of Global Pause, because like many of us, I was having this blissful state of not being demanded of in any way, and just really tuning into the very deep conversation that I felt I was receiving from the Divine Mother. And then people started reaching out, remarkable people from all over the world. And I started having Zoom conversations, which were really deep, causative conversations about COVID-19, the economic period of economic uncertainty, and the brave new world that we could create as a result. I mean, you know, the global pause was really quite something, wasn't it? Because it was a unique psychic and societal phenomenon. And I wondered if there were any particular energy gifts that you found happening for you during the pause.
Mm. Well, we're still in it. A lot of places are still quite in it. And so for me, it really was just another call to enter a state of stillness. I think a lot of us are so busy doing, we forget just simply to be. And so stillness and tapping into that sweet, beautiful energy of stillness, and ultimately it's that energy of peace. That's the undercurrent of all of life. That's really what I was able to spend the most of my time during that global pause. How about you?
Yeah, amazing stillness. It's a huge concept that I teach. Um, I mean, I feel the firmament of what we're trying to really touch and bring about, as we know, our conversation this evening is called Entering Unity, meaning unity consciousness. That one of the principal ways for me for entering into a conversation with God, into that very, very deep communion, is through stillness. So I spend a lot of time in stillness. Very busy in the world, sometimes standing in front of large groups of people. I love it, but I'm also a hermit. So it's wonderful to come back to whatever base I have, wherever I am, split between London and New York, and just be still and
Mhm.
quiet.
And you
And then,
receive so much guidance, right? You receive so many downloads and gifts and insights when we get still that we may not have tapped into because we were so busy. So I just love that you're sharing that.
mm. And so tell, I mean, tell we in Europe and the rest of the world what you're experiencing where you are, because you corrected me by, well, we're still in global pause. And I was seeing the global pause as being those 3 months. And it feels to me that we're in a completely different energy. But of course, that's registering what's happening in this city, in this part of Europe. For those of you who don't know, I'm in London, England.
Mhm.
So what's happening with you in the States and particularly in California?
Yeah, so California has been really, really on top of it. And, um, aside from COVID and all of that uh, stuff happening, there's a lot of fires happening, and also in Oregon and in Washington and in Colorado. So it's almost like one thing after the other. And one thing that I'm noticing and I'm seeing is that people are listening and coming together, but listening to what um, others are saying in a way like different perspectives and different backgrounds. I know there's a lot of states where there's not a lot of listening happening, and maybe parts of the world where there's not a lot of listening happening. So I am noticing a lot of people more open and willing to listen to different perspectives. Even if they don't agree with them, they're listening, and that's been beautiful to witness.
Mhm. And so it's this extraordinary conversation that I feel Pachamama, the Divine Mother, is having with us in this listening process. And
Mhm.
it feels also that your remark is suggesting that there's a different tenor of energy between peoples, because we're often not listening to what somebody is saying. We're hearing them maybe, but not really listening, because we're really preparing what we're about to say in
Mm.
terms of our own sharing. And so do you feel that this concept or this quality of radiation is something that you will be drawing into the work more and more and encouraging people to listen?
Absolutely. So we all know that we are all headed in a direction of unity and love and compassion and peace. And although it may seem like a very far, long off distance that that's going to happen, it is much closer than we think. It's actually in the next breath that we take. And I'm noticing that a lot of new age and spiritual people who have been doing this for a long time are, as part of the process, I like to call, getting caught up in the matrix of separation, of fear, and it's part of the process, so we honor that. But I want to speak to you directly because you are the way showers. You are the ones that we as a humanity are. You are one of the people who was going to help us move forward. So I've been noticing in many of the spiritual communities, there's emerging, and I know we talked about this a few weeks ago, Stewart, but there's emerging between the spiritual communities and a lot of the, what do they call them? The conspiracy theories communities. And what happens is usually when this occurs, it's usually as a result of looking for some answers, confused, not clear, not understanding. And so when there's so much noise, when there's so much chaos around us, and we're not going within, and we're not listening, and we're not meditating, and we're not connecting, it can be very easy to get caught up in the matrix of what's being presented to us, which is the fear and the separation and the illusion. And so it has been interesting to notice a lot of people who practice and speak love and light to not really be showing that and embodying that as a being, as someone who is has been teaching it, or has been talking about it for a long time. And the ways that I'm seeing this is actually a lot of the conspiracy theories that I know, and we're hearing them all around, they do run. I mean, there is some sort of truth, but then what happens is a lot of it gets embellished, and people have their own opinions, and people, it's been since day one of humanity's experience where that happens. And so what that does is it creates this space for a lot of light workers and way showers and teachers and guides and healers to kind of start to jump on a bandwagon of being accusatory and unkind and unloving to people and groups of people that we know are extensions of us. We are all extensions of one another. So if we are going to start to make it about them and me and this and that, we are actually getting distracted. But if we remember that we are all one family, and sometimes there are going to be people in our family that we don't agree with, but we can still love them. We can still see the patterns of pure perfections. And that is what we are being called to do more than ever right now. And I know there are people, and I have many friends who are in the spiritual community. They say, well, we're warriors and we are, we're fighters. I am too, but be a warrior for peace, be a warrior for love and compassion, and anchor those qualities. Because when you are a warrior for divisiveness and separation and accusing people, whether it's celebrities or whoever it may be, of doing things that you're not 100% sure that they're doing, it really is cause for you to just step back, go within, and ask yourself, is this expanding humanity? Is this bringing us to the vision of kindness and compassion and equality and justice for all? I know there's a lot of anger. I know there's a lot of confusion. The key to moving through that is to honor those parts of ourselves without projecting them onto others. We, as light workers or new age or whatever you want to call it, we have been outcasts for a really long time. It's not our job to outcast other people and to make them and vilify them and make them think that, or project as if they are something other than an extension of us. So that's really what I've been noticing. And I know that was a mouthful, but I think it's time to be really honest about that with ourselves.
I so applaud what you've just said. I don't feel it was I feel it was an outpouring, but I don't think it was too much. And I'm sure all of the wonderful people listening in, I've just seen, by the way, I've just seen the wonderful Eileen, whom I know very well, is in Asheville, North Carolina, saying hello, hello, hello. Lots of wonderful people saying hello. You know, what was beautiful about your oration, what you just shared with us, was the way in that moment you connected with the entire circumference, with the whole consciousness of the way that you appreciate unity consciousness, entering unity. And in that moment, as you spoke, the field of your heart was so vast that I could feel the radiation of it traveling to me, but also traveling beyond your house in Santa Barbara, all the way through California, all the way through the other states, and beaming into the consciousness of this zone in the United Kingdom. I hope everybody noticed that, because it was an extraordinary moment. And it seems to me, if I may say that, as a suggestion, that what we need to do is to remind ourselves of the unique unity consciousness that we have with Mother Nature. And that will always be, I hope, a satisfyingly pure, nourishing, comforting, grounding experience. Although where you are at the moment, Mother Nature seems to be burning up with a certain amount of rage, possibly for good reason. Anyway, we'll leave that sort of over there. Otherwise, it'll take us on a segue. And then, having felt that unique connection with Divine Mother, which is the real core centeredness of our own being, that we can then reflect on what's going on in the world and cease being so condemnatory or accusatory, because we're all just simply trying to find the way. And I know we talked about it, the conspiracy theory, and I think it was shortly after, when we spoke, it was shortly after the fact that I'd been attacked viciously by people who were saying that I was drinking the blood of young children and all sorts of extraordinary things, and that they wanted to kill me. Compassion, 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 compassion. But we can actually begin to see that if we understand that all of the opinionation is really an intellectualization of fear,
Yes.
then we can detach, feel stillness, observe, take a deep breath, and then send lots of love.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, a lot of people watching, a lot of empaths, sensitives, we are high functioning. We are multitaskers. We can do things and multiple, and really the mind as a very high functioning being is very creative. And if we are not giving ourselves a healthy outlet to create and to honor the mind as its own being that just desires to create, what ends up happening is what we see in the world, a lot of chaos, a lot of separation. So the key is to really give ourselves the space to give the mind the opportunity to be creative in a way that feels good, in a way that nurtures us. And I understand when humanity has been suppressed for a really long time and oppressed, and there's a lot of control has been in a select hands of few, yes, there's going to be some rage and anger and frustration. It's important to honor that process. We're not glossing over it. We're not just saying, okay, we can't do that. And it is, and that's why I said in the beginning, it's a process. However, this is a call to those who have been doing the work for a long time to see if you are someone who is getting caught up in that matrix, to come back to yourself again, because we need you. This is what's going to elevate the consciousness to the next level. This is what's going to help humanity overcome this time and really enter a golden age, the next golden age, where people come together, where equality is as important as kindness and respect and love. I mean, all of that is coming. And yes, we have to go through a lot of what we're going through to get there. However, those of us who have done the work for decades or a few years or whatnot, you are being asked to just come back to yourself and really put things into perspective, because your role is very important in this journey, and we need you.
Mm, mm. Beautiful, beautiful. And so there's much talk of becoming warriors. And I feel that possibly is an instinct or an archetypal force that is moving a lot of people. But if really what we're saying is if the warrior is not balanced with the lover, we don't really have this revolution of empaths that is principally taking place at this time. All the other revolutionary zeal is being used for divisiveness and for a movement away from inclusivity. But if we bring the lover and the warrior together, so that if you like, it's the priestess warrior-ess or priest warrior, then we have a clear balance. But
Mhm.
we're really moving forward in strong, courageous, brave, and zealous ways, but not as a denouncement to other people through personal projection of anger, no matter how frustrated we are. I mean, you have the most amazing equilibrium. So I'm sure that as well as having all these wonderful ideas, because I know we talked a lot about the ideology needs to become more physically experienced, so it becomes an embodied reality. What are your personal regimes, and what do you use to stabilize you? Because you work very hard.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes, thank you, brother. And I'm sure you already know these as well. But for me, it's all about balance. And you said balancing the what I heard, the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And the divine masculine is that part of us that is the doer, the action, bringing forth. And then the feminine is the healer, the nurturer, the creative, the lover. And so if we are only catering to one and not honoring the other, there's going to be an imbalance there. And right now, in the Western school systems and a lot of the ideology, it has been solely focused on one, which is very much the masculine. And it hasn't even really been the divine aspect. It's been the part of the masculine that's very patriarchal, and it's very domination and greed and fear and confusion. And we don't want, as light workers, to do the same thing back, because like attracts like, and it'll just keep happening. What we want to do is through the divine feminine to elevate the divine masculine, or the lower aspect of the masculine, to become the divine masculine again, because only she can really provide that energy and that support so that it can alchemize back into its true authentic self. And so the way we do that is three things. And this is, if we just simply do these three things every day. I've been doing these for decades now, and I've seen it in so many friends and colleagues and clients who do this. You see that balance, you can feel that balance. And this balance is three things. One is to make sure that we have a spiritual practice. So if you are meditating, if you are taking time for a stroll in the park, spending time in nature, earthing, um, just these things that can really feed your spirit. And our spiritual practice really is you coming back to yourself and really moving from the doingness to the beingness. So we are conditioned to always do, to work, to take care of our children, to output energy. So ultimately, your spiritual development is to support you in coming back to the beingness, that stillness, that peace, creating space between the thoughts, creating space between the actions and behaviors, so that you can have epiphanies and understandings that can help elevate your behaviors and patterns to a direction that feel more reflective of who you are. So that's one, really developing our spiritual practice every day, even if it's for like 30 seconds or 1 minute. That will help create that space, set the tone for you. And I usually do it in the morning and then again in the evening before I go to bed, but just see how that feels for you. The second thing is to make sure that you are playing. You know, a lot of us are doing the creative work and outputting work in the 9 to 5 or whatever it is. That is important. That does feed the structure, organized aspect of the mind, the highly intellectual mind. But play also creates space for that divine feminine to come in, to allow itself to give us the insights and the revelations. And it works really harmoniously together with the spiritual practice to really support that doingness and the outpouring of energy that we do to fulfill the creative work. So playing is important. And then, of course, the creative work, which is our daily work, our daily tasks, organizing, structure, you know, finding focus, intent, manifesting. These are really connecting with the highest aspect of the divine masculine so that we are no longer tapping into the misuse of creation because we're not actually being intentional with our creative work. We can actually now do real work like bring change to the planet, heal the planet, support one another, create new inventions that are going to help life as we know it get better. So it all works together, but we can't just be focused on one and not do the other two, because if we do that, then we're going to see what we're seeing right now, which is the imbalance.
Beautiful, beautiful. And of course, I guess in the latter, utilizing the latter aspect of the creative, which is such a mixture for me of play as well, is the dreaming. And the more that we're dreaming, the new world into creation, the new way of being, the new level of living, then the easier it gets. So in this moment, I feel that it's very significant again that using the vibrational currency that you use, because I notice that when you speak these things, you spell them, meaning you cast the spell. And,
With
and
light.
because your voice, you know, it feels to me that you're a sounding device in an ocean of sound. You know, you're a listening device in an ocean of sound. The charge that moves through you goes right through your heart, so right through your note. So as you speak it, you are incanting, and therefore you are lulling us, seducing us, enthusing us, eliciting from us, and spiritualizing us into the vibration that you're speaking of. And that if we can just surf on some of the beautiful radiation that comes from you as you speak, what we can do is to dream the next world into creation, which is just a breath away, isn't it? I mean, it's
Yes.
right now, it's happening. We can feel it, you know, because otherwise I don't believe that you and I would be having this conversation. And if I may say, you know, what I would love personally is that we continue our conversation, because I feel that we've discovered something in one another, and there's a rainbow-like bridge that is going between you and I, and therefore it's of course going to increase the radiation.
Yes. Well, they say when soul family comes together from all walks of life, miracles happen
Yeah.
because now you, even if you're aware of it or not, it's like this beautiful combustive energy of light, of
Mm,
love, of rainbow energy. And I really definitely am grateful that we connected so we can do that.
beautiful, beautiful. So would you mind just um, isolating those 3 degrees again, just by naming them again, because they were so crucial, and you gave us a tremendous amount of information, just simply to pad out the essential ethic, as it were, or the code.
Absolutely. And remember, if we are intentional, if we are mindful with all of these three things, they're going to overlap. They're going, like you said, play feels like creative work, and creative work feels like spiritual work. So when we are intentional and mindful and just carve out time
Mm,
to allow these three things to fully be realized and expressed into our daily routine, that's when the magic happens. That's when the miracles start to unfold. So the three things are spiritual development, spiritual work practice, your creative work, which is basically your job or what you're here to serve and do and put out in the world, and then your play, making sure that you play And play for me, it looks like not thinking. So I get to just be a kid. I get to laugh. I get to, spend time with friends. And this is something that creates a break for the intellectual mind so that we can connect with the um, wisdom within us, the heart wisdom, so that she can do what she needs to do.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And of course, there is the ever present initial code, which is we need to afford time to engage in our practice, which is a meditative practice we are recommending that can be taking a walk in nature, or it can be sitting in a chair and meditating very specifically. That a lot of people, I'm sure you found this over the years, that a lot of people find that bridge really difficult to maintain or even to enter into, because we're so fixated with doing. And this is one of the reasons why for 35 whatever years it is, I've been pioneering sound as a healing modality, that if we're able to chant in one of these practices or listen to a wonderful mantra sung by Snatam Kaur or David Premal or whomever, or Stewart Pearce, that automatically it moves us into a hemisync where the left and the right brain become one, and therefore it's difficult to think of what's the next thing to do. We actually end up being and moving into that divine stillness that I feel opens a door into the I am presence. Have you discovered that, I'm sure you have, that many people find it very difficult to unify the two hemispheres and therefore are often quite splintered, even though they're saying they are?
Yes, but only because that's the habitual routine that they have been conditioned. I don't think anyone as a baby decides, oh, we have to focus only on math and science and history and all those things, although they're great. But a lot of schools don't have music. A lot of schools, thank goodness some do, but a lot of them, they don't. A lot of them don't have different ways of thinking, things that would support different ways of thinking, because not everyone has this specific way, the left brain cultivated. Some people come in super cultivated in the right brain and have a hard time fitting in. And that's a lot of light workers and spiritual folk. They really are that. And so what I would say is start simple. Just make it so simple for yourself. If you are having a challenge bringing into your daily routine something that can bring you a little more peace and ease, just ask yourself, can I do it for 21 days? So neuroscience, and you know this, Stewart, neuroscience shows us that it takes 21 days to end a pattern that we no longer like, to really be mindful every day, to end a pattern that is no longer serving us, to break a habit. And it takes 28 days to really, it becomes almost second nature to begin a new one. So whether it's mantras or whether it's meditating or whether it's going for a walk every day, create a new habit for yourself that will allow more space to enter your field so that you can start shifting out of those old patterns. So know that it's not your fault. It's absolutely, it's just a condition from ancestors, from society as a whole, that has really been making us believe that our sole purpose for living is basically to make money and survive. And ultimately, that's an illusion. It's not real. Ultimately, what we're here for is to be fully realized, to come here to fully realize who you are as this spiritual, beautiful being, getting to have this physical experience and experiencing the gift of sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, and then everything else is just a reflection of that. So one thing that I would love to share with our beautiful community today is a quick little meditation that will help you create some space and help create more of that space. And if I can hold you accountable for the next 21 days, if you can, even if it's for 7 days, to try this little technique, I guarantee you're going to start feeling that space. You're going to start feeling lighter. You're not going to be as triggered. You're not going to get as caught up in what's going on all around you. So can we do that, Stewart? Is it
Yes,
okay if we do?
please. Let's do.
It's very,
All
very
right, let's
simple.
be.
Yes, so it's very simple. So I'm going to invite you to go ahead and close your eyes and just take a deep breath, just focusing on your breath, breathing in through the nose, filling up with oxygen, with life force energy. And as you exhale, feel yourself just relaxing into the chair, the couch, the bed, the floor that you're on, just letting yourself be supported by that thing that you are sitting on. Good. Let's take another deep breath in, breathing in that life that's here for you. And as you exhale, feel yourself sinking into the chair, the couch, the bed, the floor, just letting yourself relax even more into that object. And one more. Take a deep breath in and release. So all we're going to do is we're going to count to 4. So we're going to begin with 1. So in front of you, in your mind's eye, in your third eye, you're going to just see the number 1. And then we're going to see the number 2. And now before we get to the number 3, we're just going to sit in the space between 2 and 3. So that space between the number 2 and 3, let's just sit in that for a moment. If the mind wants to wander, just gently bring it back to that space between 2 and 3. Take a deep breath in and release. You can go ahead and open your eyes. Just getting into your 5 senses, getting back into the shapes and textures all around you. Just really check in with your body, see how you feel. So all that was a simple disruption of the pattern. So if you allow for yourself to connect with the space between the thoughts, that will put you into what many call a alpha or theta brainwave, which allows you to tap into that infinite potential, your source essence, so that the creativity, the beauty, the light that is you can fully emerge. Most of us are operating in beta, so we want to make sure that we are tapping into those deeper states. And it could just be, how long was that? Like 30 seconds? So if you do that while you're going for a walk, or if you do that while you are just meditating during work, during your break, this will start to create space for you to thrive. I hope you enjoyed that. It's very simple.
I was in a field of ecstasy. I don't know what everybody else was doing. It was absolutely exquisite. You know, what I love about the refinement, I mean, obviously the stilling through the breath is quintessential. But the choice that you made to take us through 1, 2, suspension, 3, suspension, 4, is this one of the great keys that's coming to me at this moment is that I feel that as we're seeing the cosmic cycle finish and a new cosmic cycle beginning, these extraordinary eruptions are taking place on our planet. But as a result, weight, space, and time as energies are being distorted. The space-time continuum is distorting. And a lot of people are experiencing bewildering concern over the fact that they've read all the books and yet they're practicing manifestational processes and the manifestations are not taking place, so they're giving up. One of the keys that I've been impressed to really engender, to open up for people, is the key of sustainability, so that we're really engaging in flow. And so the suspension of energy that you just gave us between 2 and 3, and then from 3 into 4, I feel is beautiful because it's training the mind to keep a continuous beam of light moving through whatever the intention is. The intention is to slow down between those two, that periodicity of 2 and 3, 3 and 4. But it's a sustainability which moves us into flow. And the doing mind scatters us where we don't flow. And so our breath becomes ecstatic, and therefore we become so upset within through startle reflex. So that's absolutely beautiful. I hope you all felt that, everybody. I thought that was amazing. So what effectively, Emmanuel wanted the conversation to be called Entering Unity, and what we've just done is to move into unity consciousness just by doing that, which is obviously facilitating a hugely powerful state of consciousness within. Whereas if we can move away from the aggressive nature of beta rhythms, aggressive purely and simply because they've been fed that way by educational mechanisms, by socialization mechanisms, or by conditioning. If we gently move into alpha or theta state, automatically we begin to experience a form of unity, the finer impulses with our own spirit, but then also the fact that we're literally steeped in soul, and we can begin to feel all other people. Now, I've noticed that whenever I've engaged in this, mostly in public, I don't mean in my professional work as a healer within workshops, because it's a given that it's going to occur there. But that whenever I've taken myself into a place of complete unity, I notice that the people in the space with me, whether it be in a crowded airport terminus or a railway terminus or walking down a street, people automatically pick it up and then become magnetically drawn to the force that I have and look surprised that they're being drawn for some inexplicable reason, the reason we know. So it seems to me that it's a major, major device that we really need to adhere to, but in a joyous and in a playful way, so that we don't develop another ide fix and becomes constipated by it. I must do this. I must do this. I should do this. This is all about the old realm, isn't it?
That's so well put. I would like to add to that, a lot of the extraordinary sages that came before us, like Kuan Yin, Buddha, Jesus, like all these amazing figures, that's all they were doing was tapping into that deep state of theta or alpha, holding space and just being in that love, that compassion. That's where they reside. When you're like tick, 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 it's very hard to really tap into joy, to tap into peace, to tap into love. But when you just slow it down, tap, check in first of all, because there are going to be some discomforts. If your feelings lack about money, or if you're feeling, just really honoring those, being with them. But underneath that is the abundance. Underneath that is the peace. Underneath that's the undercurrent. All of that is there. Love is there. It's within every fiber of your being. And if you just commit to, can you imagine what would happen if they started teaching this at preschool? Like, it would just be amazing. And I see that one day. I know some schools are doing that. But yeah, it's just, imagine what would happen if you can just show up for yourself now from this space of neutrality, where you can make decisions from this empowered space. You can make your next move from this space. You can show up in a conversation from this space. So you are no longer seeing the divisiveness. You are no longer seeing the separation. You're actually seeing the perfection in the person that's trying to yell or whatever. And you become a space holder. You become as great as any sage that came before you, to be able to elevate. And that's what you were saying when you're at the airport. It elevates the energy of the room, and people can feel that. And they may not know what's happening, but eventually you're just holding the space for them to remember the perfection of who they are. And in their own time, they will experience that awakening.
Beautiful. This is a wonderful, I mean, I'm reminded of so many different, extraordinary people that have been illumined in the last 50, 100 years. and reminded at this time, of course, of the beauty of what Gandhi taught Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and how he created the non-violent, peaceful protest, which is really effectively what we're saying, is that there are warrior instincts that we need to utilize to say, I don't feel this is appropriate, but what we need to do is to do it in loving and in peaceful ways so that the empathy opens up. The only way we can do this is if we move into fundamental stillness within, and therefore we cease the reactivity. Isn't that true? We become responsive rather than reactive. The reactivity of just reacting a certain behavior that we've done before purely because the breath is held or that we engage in a startle reflex. If we can really feel the stillness working. I know personally, I went through a huge crisis 3 years ago, which was one of those surprising crises that we go through. And although it racked me, and I mean it racked me physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, because I felt that the choices that I'd made in response to the individual that I'm referring to in my own consciousness, that I felt that they'd all been immensely loving and full of responsibility and so forth and so forth. And these energies were conflicting for the person that I'm talking about. And so brute force was used, and I was very, very devastated by what took place. But I recognized that I moved through the entire transit of what that landscape was all about in a very, very deep way in an amazingly short period of time. And I know that this is so because 40 odd years of meditation had prepared my neural pathways to heal really swiftly. And I would suggest, going back to the time frames that you gave us, that the 21-day periodicity was something that was immensely significant in the process that I've just referred to. And then finally, after a month or a month and a half, going into the 28 days, and the sort of surplus amount after that, that I'd calmed, and I was actually able to see why I'd created it and how I would never, ever, ever need to create a similar uncomfortable force again.
Yes.
And
And
in that moment became wiser.
I love that. That's so deep. And I love that you brought up the 21 days again, because that actually really feeds the analytical part of the mind. It really gives it a role. It allows it to feel like it's part of the team. It no longer feels like it's being neglected. And I think giving the mind some of that structure really helps it support and be on board.
Yes. Yeah, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. So we actually we already have the inspiration of the word sustainability ringing through our cultures, particularly in the Western world, because we're seeing the application of what sustainability is and all the varying spheres that need that level of attention. But what I've always discovered is that to arrest time, one just simply needs to repeat. Repetition is the mother of skill.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When did this all begin for you?
Mm-hmm.
I know you know, cosmology, it means before you came into incarnation, but I'm thinking particularly in this incarnation because your early years were not spent in the United States, were they?
Yes. So as difficult as it was during the time, and I would never change it because it really allowed me to refine and become who I am today. I was born in Lebanon, in the war-torn country at the time, and it was during the Civil War. So we really had, I mean, below what humans should be receiving, whether it was food or no water or, sleeping on a cement floor, things like that, and just seeing such devastation and loss of family and friends all the time. I definitely got to see that side of humanity, but I also got to see what it was to be loved by a mother and a grandmother in such a way that was alchemical. It really healed me because, first of all, my grandma was a intuitive, so she was the town intuitive. She would do the coffee, the flipping of the coffee, and the tea. She would do the tea leaf reading. And so she was very connected, and she had a lot of fans there. A lot of people from different villages would come, and she would just, they would say, um, we want to give you money, we want to give you things, and she would never accept. She was just very humble in that way. So she was very intuitive. And then my mom is, of course, very intuitive, but she wasn't really, probably because she's a Sagittarius, so she wanted to rebel against her mother. And so she, became very, very intellectual, but also, a free spirit. So it was of great balance. But my grandmother always told my mom, because she recognized something similar inside of me, to allow me to stay open. So whatever it was, whatever I said to her, if I saw, like a friend that she couldn't see or whatever it was, to keep it open, to be very loving and understanding, and to never make me feel like it was wrong to be myself. And so my mom did that. And I'm so, so grateful, because it allowed me to, during the chaos, during the suffering, during the pain, have beautiful moments of escaping into source, and just going within, and praying and meditating without realizing I was doing that. Music, singing, and during the brief ceasefires, we used to go to the mountains and, be in the fields of flowers. So I really had a lot of beautiful moments and experiences that really carried me through. I definitely had a lot of trauma, PTSD, a lot of things that I suffered once I came to the States. We really uh, were able to dive into those. But because of my grandmother being so open, and she was very into alternative therapies and healing, and of course, I mean, it's so interesting that it's not so common in the States, because in the Middle East, and I'm sure in the Eastern countries, it's so common to use natural alternative methods to heal. So she really just, that's how we used to heal. And when we came to the States, we started to go into, my mom started researching with me acupuncture, yoga, meditation, different things like that. She would get me books that I could read. I loved reading self-help books. So that's really how I started. And with the intuition and staying connected and open, it really helped me to want to do this for work, having the psychology background, and just having witnessed such healing in my life, having overcome scoliosis, having overcome skin issues, psoriasis, having overcome being mute for many years, and also then having a stutter, having deep fear of speaking in front of people. I mean, there's so many things that I was able to overcome, that I wanted to use as a reference point to help others. And we have been able to do that for so many. And this is one of the things that I'm so passionate about, is just reminding people of the perfection that is already them, because it really does make a difference. And if you want to make it or put it into one thing that I do, is just to remind people through presence, just holding that space for them to remember who they are. And eventually they do, whether it's in this lifetime or another lifetime, they will. And it's been amazing to witness so many people do it so quickly, because I think people are ready for it.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Do you mean the people around you?
No, in life, everybody, I think people are really ready to awaken and have a safe space to come back to themselves. I think there has been a lack. I'm sure we've had teachers or moments or things here and there where people do that for us, but ultimately it's to serve us to do that for ourselves. And my greatest vision is to just continue being that presence that's just constant, so that people can then, when they're ready, because the student is ready when they're ready, so they will step into that for themselves.
Mm. I love what you say, because it's always brimming with hope. And I feel that, that you observe is very much to do with the radiation that pours from you, which I respect immensely. And the way that you've been able to elevate your own consciousness not in a supra way so that you become superior, but purely and simply because you have this wonderful sort of eagle eyrie process of being able to fly high and see what's going on down there, and then you swoop down and you spread your love and your wisdom and your sage-like
Mhm.
qualities. Um, I think it's really, really beautiful, because I see a tremendous amount of schism, but I know that that's very much part of my nature. It's something that's always been present. And out of schism, I create unity. So I feel that there's, it's an interesting meeting point in terms of our lineages, because it's profoundly obvious to me that you arise out of a dazzling spiritual lineage of great healers, going through your grandmother, going through your great grandmother, going all the way through the female ancestral line. Is your grandmother still alive?
No, she transitioned in 2005, but ultimately, that's when everything changed for me so that I could do this for work for other people. So I know she's with us all the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And sends great blessings. I feel that
Yes.
she's there, or with the coffee cup, just
Yes. She's a mother. She just is, she reminds me of um, she definitely has like a Mother Mary type of vibe that I tap into, which is amazing.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Like Diana.
Well, there are a number of beings that are emerging in our consciousness, so that we become clearer about the corona, the pantheon of the divine feminine. But at the same time, these very remarkable souls, I had a dream last night that I was sitting with Maya Angelou in her house in Winston-Salem, because I was there it must be about 20 years ago. And because I was teaching a masterclass at the university, and I was introduced to her, and we took a look at one another and we liked each other immediately. And
Mm.
so we swore that we needed to spend as much time together before separation took place, in the sense of geographical separation. And so she invited me to her house, and I was with her for about 3 or 4 hours. And they were some of the most sacred moments that I've ever spent with any other human being, because of her immense wisdom that was so embodied, the suffering that she had been through, and yet how she was triumphant and buoyant, through the suffering, above the suffering, under the suffering, and was therefore in this space of pronounced resolution about the meaning of unity consciousness and the allness of the divine. It was quite extraordinary. Anyway, so I was dreaming last night that I was having a conversation with her. So I was tuning in earlier today, before going off and doing a major job, to some of her teachings. And much of what she was saying, we've been expressing in our own ways through this hour together.
She's with us.
She's with us. She's with us. She's there in the divine pantheon. This is what I was really referring to. Um, We've covered so much ground, and actually we've whizzed. I mean, I have some questions in front of me, but we've whizzed through them quite extraordinarily. Oh, there was a question that I wanted to ask, to see, what your perception is. We've spoken a lot about the need to move into unity consciousness for obvious reasons. But why do you feel we become so separated from the source?
Hmm. Um, I think if we, again, having that eagle eye view, I think it was part of the initiation experience in the beginning, so that we could understand contrast, that we could understand what could be at the hand of forgetting who we are, so that we can really appreciate the richness and the beauty and the textures of the oneness that is actually underneath all of that. So I think it goes way beyond just hundreds or thousands of years. And I think just really going through that initiation of forgetfulness so that we can come back stronger, more resilient, more empowered than ever to, once we actually physically manifest into our reality, unity and love. My ear is ringing, so thank you, universe. So just really manifesting that into the physical world, we can hold it so precious and dear, because what happens is sometimes it can be easy to slip, right? Like if you've been meditating for a year and then you're like, have a week that's bad and you're like, well, doesn't work. Well, didn't it work? Or maybe you can actually see it as, okay, I'm going to give myself a little break and then use these tools that I know to come back to my peace, to come back to my joy. The thing that I covet the most is my peace. I covet it more than anything else, because when you have peace, you have everything. Because now you can make decisions, you can operate, you can show up for people and be your full self instead of not full self. So a lot of the resentments, all those things kind of just fall away when you give yourself the peace, when you give that to yourself. You don't need it from anyone else. You get it from yourself. So ultimately, I feel that we needed to go through all of this so that we can covet our peace, so that we can just hold it so dear to our hearts, so that when the mind wants to come in and start to disrupt some of that, it'll become much easier to say, I know what can happen there. I think I'm good. And that's what I think, at least for me, that's what I think we're moving towards.
Breathtaking. Absolutely breathtaking.
That was a hard question too.
You responded with such alacrity. And it's really interesting because as you were speaking, I was completely present with you, but also thinking, what's the chat box saying? And are there any questions? And one of the questions that I was about to ask you that I read, and I thought, oh, I must ask him this, was from wonderful Jackie, who's a UK lass, who said, who is asking, when did Emmanuel find peace? And as soon as I thought this, guess what you started talking about?
Peace.
Yes. And so the other comment, I mean, beautiful, beautiful comments in observation of the conversation that's taking place between us, but also in relation to your wonderful generosity and how people are actually noticing that when you are in full flow, your aura literally expands and then comes back down to peace. I feel that unfortunately our time has come to a close. It seems like just a few moments, but unfortunately this is so. So I want to thank you. Please don't disappear just yet, Emmanuel. I want to thank you and all of the wonderful people that are listening in. Anybody got any questions before we finally leave? I'm not seeing any questions, which is always good. It's always very good, isn't it? Because it means that actually there is no schism in the sense of, yes, but what about? Or, but I don't really understand that. It's actually bringing in the whole wonderful expansion of what unity consciousness is about, that it's that peace that passeth all understanding. Oh, just lots of thanks from Lenis, Maria. Bless you. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody, for listening in and for the wonderful Emmanuel for being with us. And I hope that this is the beginning of many conversations that you and I will have, because I love what happens through the space between us. Many people saying, so quick. Yes, indeed. An amazing interview. Oh, I see. So it was namaste, namaste, namaste. Bye, everybody. Thank you for listening in.
Thank you, brother.